welcome. I'm going to take these two boards here. We're going to combine them to make a 4x4, or what you would call a 4x4. But technically it would be 3 inches wide, and it's an inch and a half, 3 inches by 7 inches, approximately. Because 2x4s are not 2x4 anymore. Well, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to start with, I've got my two boards sized out right. I eyed them at the lumberyard to make sure that they were straight. It looks like one is has a little bit of English to it, which I don't like, but when I clamp them up, it may help with this problem. Welcome, Daka Becca. Welcome to the live stream. So we're going to take some glue. We're going to butter this down all the way to the end. Make sure that all the surface area is covered. You can brush it on too. And this is a solution if you're trying to build something that needs big dimensional lumber that you really can't pick up from the store. So you want to take, and you can also control kind of, you know, what quality of lumber you get, the sizing and stuff later on if you get smaller pieces and laminate them. So you see I've got my glue on here. I'm going to take a little shim and kind of butter it down. Kenya Aslan, welcome. You want to make sure they're squeezed out with the glue. This is probably not enough glue yet, but I don't like to overdo it because glue is hard on tools. So when you plane it down and stuff like that, you don't want there to be lumps of glue and things like that on there. So you want to have the right amount of glue. Obviously better to overestimate than underestimate, but you don't want to overestimate too much because then you'll end up with some sloppy wood that'll damage your tools. Both pieces of wood should probably have glue on the surface. So here we have our 2x4s buttered with glue. Now I'm just going to do this. It's very simple. What I do when I get them together is I press them down and slide to make sure the surface area is kind of covered with glue. And because one of these has a little bowing to it, it's going to have to really be clamped hard in the middle. This is one way you can kind of mitigate some curvature in your wood. Laminated wood is generally straighter, so it's a way to do it. Now we've got our two boards together here. We want to put tremendous pressure down on these boards while they glue up. I think it needs a little bit more glue. It seems a little bit light on the glue. There we go. Straighten up these ends, make sure the ends are on. I'm going to start from the end of the bench. The woodworker cannot have too many clamps. Clamps are so helpful for all kinds of different stuff, especially when you're by yourself. You're trying to build a larger piece. You gotta use clamps to hold structural members up so that you can put the other ones together. Important to remember when you use a clamp, and these are brand new, to start with the clamp all the way unscrewed. So you want to look at all the threads of the screw. You want to cinch it in and then tighten. Don't tighten and then cinch in. You won't get a tight clamp. Little word to the wise. That way, once you've cinched all the way in, the screw is putting more pressure on the joint. So you want to tighten it basically as far as you can. Now I've got one clamp, I've got two clamps with the handles this way. Traditionally, you'll see woodworkers do this. Now I want my clamp handle on the other side, so I'm gonna cinch this in. And since the wood's bowed a little bit, it's gonna take even more pressure. And as you do it, wipe off your glue out, your squeeze out from the glue. You don't want that on the board because when you work it, you don't want your tools hitting that dried glue. You want to avoid that as much as possible. So now we got clamp handle this way, clamp handle this way, clamp handle that way. I'm going to put another one in the middle with the handle this way. So now I'm down to two clamps. I'm going to want one right in here, and I want one right in here. Two handles this way, two handles that way, so it really doesn't matter on this one. Probably a little bit easier if I put the long handle clamps that way so that I only got one side that I have to deal with. Cinch it all the way in. Make sure you really want them as centered as possible. This one's not on center. I should probably center that. And the best kind of clamps are going to be pipe clamps, of which I only have a couple left, and so I have to restock on pipe clamps. Those are the ones where you get the pipe clamp piece, and then you get your own pipe cut, or you cut it yourself, and you put it on the pipe, and the pipe becomes a very powerful clamp, very heavy too. Down to one clamp. Now I'm going to take a couple of these and readjust them so that they're against the clamp brace on the back, just to make sure that it's tight. You want to go around and cinch all these down too. Man, nothing like some new clamps. And then when you see that squeeze out start coming out a lot, then you know you've got your clamps real tight. It's a good sign. Let's check the other side. Get that glue squeeze out off of there. And now we have our gonna be a 4x4 clamped up, glued up, and ready to it's gonna take probably a little bit more than a day to dry because this kind of glue dries better in the heat. So if it's the summer and I set it out, it'll probably dry within, 6 to 8 hours to where you can put stress on it. But because it's the winter, I'm gonna have to let this dry a little bit longer. It's gonna occupy these clamps. That's why I had to go get some more clamps. If you saw my short. I don't read Cyrillic, but welcome. B, welcome. Here we have a diagonal brace for a timber frame. This one I cut today. It's going to go, well, you can kind of see this post over here. It's not going to go on this post, it's going to go on the other one. But you can see it's going to join the tie beam or the vertical member here with a tie beam on the top. And so it's going to go into the housing. It's not like a deck where they just take a 45-degree angle and just screw it in. It's a little more complicated than that. If you want to know how the math I use to lay out the brace, join my Discord and I will drop that information so you get it. It is kind of hard to find this info online because it's a trade secret. So how do we cut these braces like this? I'm going to show you. You can see, hopefully I held that angle right there, that half of this is a shoulder and half of this is a tenon, right? So we're going to cut out the tenon and leave a shoulder, but we have to do it very precisely. Welcome all new people. Love to have you here on a regular basis. Right now we're here Monday through Thursday, potentially Friday. We'll see how things go. I might give a little zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing with these edges, these shoulders. They have to be cut very precisely. Welcome, Robert. Welcome, friend of the show, Robert. Regular. All right, Robert, we are cutting diagonal braces for timber frame for this bunk bed right now. I'm trying to get it so that it's right, you know, within your view as a viewer. Now the part that I'm going to cut out is shaded. The part that I'm not is not. So I shaded the part that's going to be removed. That's going to be the waste that's going to be taken. This is tricky. See, I'm almost at my pairing line right there, so I don't want to go any further with that. This chisel is very, very, very sharp. which I'm loving right now. Hot knife through butter. Now, if you pair into the meat side, like the tenon side, it's when you put your brace in, it's going to turn it at an angle. So your cut should be very straight and don't go past your pairing line. Yes, Haint. It is because I have my table on casters. It would be a very sturdy bench, but I have it on casters so I can move it out of the garage to use power tools that create a lot of dust because I don't have a dust removal system. So yes, it can be fixed, and involves removing the casters off the wheels, which I'm really hesitant to do because the casters allow me to move my bench around right now. I need to put some more bracing on the bench too, probably, but it works for its purpose right now. So it's like my least concern, but definitely Haint. I'll leave it to Haint, friend of the show, to point out point out something like that. We love you, Haint. Appreciate it, man. Haint's got some experience, so I need to listen. Usually I do listen. It just takes me a couple days to get done what Haint sets me to. So if Haint says you need to make a mallet, which I think he did or something like that. And then I made a mallet, and Haint says, well, you know, your bench is shaking. It's going to take a little bit of work, but we'll make an unshaky bench here in a little bit. I don't know if y'all can see that pairing line, but I'm pretty close. I might stop short of the pairing line just so that if the tenon is too big, that's okay. A little too big is fine. Too small is bad with timber framing, so you have to recut your joints a lot of time, unless you want to shim them, and that's a little bit trashy. So. Oh yeah, Haynes said lay out your marks with a knife. So I did that. There may be pencil marks on this, but I did lay out these marks with a knife. So they should be very, very accurate. Welcome to Dad's Workshop, where we are currently working on a diagonal brace for a timber frame. In this case, it's a bunk bed, so the brace is a little smaller, but it's just a sized down version of a larger brace based on the conventions of timber framing that have been around for 1,000 years plus. So we have, this one is almost, I don't want to take it all the way to the line. I'm kind of a little bit hesitant to do that. If I take it almost to the line and it's a little large, I can always size it down. And I'm sure I will. That's kind of the way I want to approach it. It's a great angle for you guys. I hope it's a good angle for me though, because it's tough to saw from that angle. That's really where the line is, but we can pare it back to that. Augustine, what's up, man? Hello to you as well. Augustine, welcome, Augustine, for the first time. Appreciate you being here. Tell me what you're working on. Give me a shout out. Put a name in there. Somebody who knows me who's in there. I know there's people who know me who pop in here. Say hello. Drop a line about what you're working on. What's your woodworking experience? Also, look at the poll. Miss Heather put a good poll on there today. Close to that paradigm line right there. On some whittling. Good. Good. What are you whittling? See, I'm just shaving a stick, man, you know? Don't ask so many questions, right? I ask too many questions. It's like a fidget activity, right? Whittling. It's also good to learn how to do. We were talking about carving the other night. I don't know if you were in here, Kelly. But even if you weren't, appreciate you being here tonight. And I appreciate the participation because, you know, that's what I was begging for. Kelly says she's working on whittling. What's everybody else working on? Huh? Drop something in there. No project's too small. We're not going to judge you. This is a no judgment zone here. That's that micro bevel side right there. Yeah, I have a branding iron that I use to brand my furniture with that I've had for like a decade. I may use that, or I may, get another branding iron. I think it's about time for a new one. But definitely, there will be a maker's mark, as there should be on every good piece of furniture that you put your heart into. You know. That way, when you're long gone and people are still relaxing on the furniture you built, people will see that little mark and say, "Oh, wonder who that was. What did he do? This is a great piece of furniture. They don't build them like this anymore, do they?" And the answer is no, they don't. They don't build them like this anymore. If they did, stuff would last longer, and people wouldn't throw away stuff so often. I'm going to get a smaller chisel here. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. I like to think it is. Thank you, Kelly, for being so brave. Shout out to Kelly for coming through with a comment and not being too shy around here. We're not a very shy bunch. Welcome to Dad's Workshop, by the way. Click that like button and subscribe. If you're trying to learn how to build things yourself, which is a great skill. We're all about self-sufficiency here. Doing as many things at home, doing things naturally as possible. For as little bit of money as possible too. That's why I taught you about the laminating. So if you were here early in this live stream, we talked about laminating wood, taking stuff you can get from Lowe's or a Home Depot, 2x4s, and using glue and clamps to combine them to create larger wooden members. So if a 2x4 is $4, and going to a lumber mill to get a 4x4 is going to cost you $100. It's probably going to be more than that, and they're not going to just cut you one 4x4. They're going to need you to order a whole bunch of wood to make it worth their while. So let's just say $100, which is a low end estimate on getting a piece of wood cut. Then you could go get that 4x4 by going to the lumber yard, going to the Lowe's or the Home Depot. I'm not paid by either. And getting some dimensional lumber, some 2x4s or 2x6s, and laminating them together to create the larger members. Then you can disguise that cheap wood by getting rid of all those brand marks on it sanding it down and planing it so that it looks nice and it's pretty. It doesn't look like it came from a big box type home improvement store. It looks like it came from a professional sawyer. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make heirloom quality furniture at the lowest possible cost. That's as deep as I can go over there. Oh, nice cherry and oak napkin holder. Napkins are sitting in the lap of luxury. Nice, even has some dovetails. Love the dovetails, man. Got to make it complicated a little bit with woodwork to make it fun. That's why I feel like framers, construction working framers, if they have other woodworking skills, they just don't use them because they're so busy doing the boring stuff all day that they're like, I'm done, and they don't want to dovetail stuff, and they'll just rather take a nail gun and shoot things together with a nail gun, even though they may know how to do this all. Or maybe they don't, because some of this is a lost art, to be honest. What's up, little buddy? Beautiful. Thank you, Hank. Now we got two sides done on our brace. Now, given Miss Heather's poll is, do you own any furniture? I take it, I can't read the whole thing from here, but looks like, do you own any furniture that has traditional joinery? It's probably the case that you don't, for the most part, unless you made it or had somebody make it for you, because it's very, very expensive. Furniture that uses joinery, traditional joinery, is made by woodworkers generally who don't make a tremendous amount of money because it takes them a very long time to make each piece. So they charge maybe too little, and that sometimes is well, that's my issue with being a professional woodworker, right? Whereas I might have pursued it. It's just not enough money to live. You make like less than a teacher. Now you notice with these braces that they are not exactly like, it's not just a piece of wood with a 45-degree angle. This tenon has to be carefully measured. There's another 45-degree angle here, then another 45-degree angle to mark the tenon. And then you see there's a little bit here, two 45-degree angles that meet to make a 90, and that's where the shoulder will be. So in my brace pocket, which is the housing for it, there will be a little notch of a 1/2 inch. There's no telling whether these fit the first time. So chances are I might have to recut one. I'll definitely have to adjust them. But now I have two that will both serve as right. Let's see, the meat has to be inward, so they're going to be coming from left to right here. This would be the brace for this side here. And then this brace would be on the other side of the bed. So now I have to cut another brace. Well, actually, this is the, hey. Okay. Definitely do that, man. By the way, if you're new, please do join the Discord where we have a 24/7 conversation about all kinds of things, but woodwork for sure. My tenons, I believe, are 1 inch wide. Let me measure those. That one's actually a bit small. They should be 1 inch wide with a 1/2 inch housing area. So that one probably will have to be recut. Let me sharpen this. This pencil's not sharp enough. And from this angle, I can't use my knife. That's why I'm using a pencil layout. But as Haint has said, it is true that you should use a knife. And I did my other lines with a knife outside of the live. So I didn't prepare this part here. Yeah, that's definitely a discussion to have in the Discord, how to really handle carving knives and stuff when you're whittling, because they are very, very sharp. And generally in woodworking, we don't push tools towards ourselves, but in whittling, it's different. It's okay if you cut yourself a whittle bit. Now, if you see like lines on the ends of this, which you may be able to see, those little lines are where I took the bandsaw and went to where the real cut line should be. So those probably have to be paired off as well. Mm-mm. As long as I don't. big knot right there in the center of this tenon, which makes it difficult. Appreciate it, Brian. My pull saw is not very good. It's a Harbor Freight one. I used to have a better Japanese one that I was much happier with. But you can't use a pull saw with two hands for one reason, Brian. As much as I love your comment, you cannot use your finger to guide the pull saw while using two hands, but you have to use your finger to set the angle of the pull saw. So how do you do that when you have two hands on the saw, right? You can't. So the only way that you can use a pull saw at least is by starting with one hand. So appreciate your expertise. I've definitely been using a pull saw for a minute. But any comments, man? I know you know what you're doing, Brian. You know, different strokes for different folks, like literally different strokes. The reason I look awkward with it, Brian, is because I'm trying to get an exact 45-degree angle, and I have my layout mark made with a knife, and so it's making me nervous. So I hesitate a little so I don't accidentally start a cut in the wrong place on one of these braces and end up with a lot of trouble. I have to dull this chisel, I think hitting it against the clamp. Appreciate that, Brian. Brian is a friend of the show, even if I argue with him a little bit. He is an expert at this kind of stuff. He knows what he's talking about. These are going to be the sturdiest bunk beds I've ever seen, that's for sure. I had a couple that were handmade when I was little. And they were converted into bunk beds, but they were done the old-fashioned way, you know. This being the old-fashioned way. It's really practice, Brian, because I'm going to build a timber frame kit, and I need practice cutting these braces and doing the joinery that it takes to do that. Probably when my channel monetizes, I'll do a timber frame kit bit that will take a couple months, and everybody will have all the diagrams and everything they need to complete that project. And once you learn how to cut these braces, it's like the key to timber framing. The hardest part and the key points are these diagonal braces. Yeah, I actually can't push a saw. I have not used a push saw since I was a little kid. And since I've been in adult woodworking, I've only used pull saws. So I have become a person who can really only saw quickly with a pull saw. So I try to always have them on hand. One was taken by my son, and he went around the woods and cut stuff down, left it out in the woods. So I don't know where that one went. My son's quite the little carpenter. When he was 2 years old, he was like sinking screws into stuff, and it was pretty amazing to see a 2-year-old use a screw gun. I had never seen anything like that, but he cut himself with a pull saw once. Didn't even cry, man. It's like a 3-year-old. I've never seen a 3-year-old draw blood and not cry. It's pretty amazing. That's why you use 2 hands, because that slip right there, if I didn't have 2 hands on that chisel, would have cut me for sure. Yeah, I've got 2 sons that will jump on these beds, so definitely they need to be sturdy. But my goal is to make them sturdy without a single screw. If they're sturdy and they have no hardware in them, then adding a couple screws be all you need to make the most sturdy, like as Brian says, sturdiest beds you've ever seen. Try to build whatever you build to hold with joinery, and then adding a couple screws is not a problem. Nails or whatever you want, fasteners you want to use. It's nice and flat right now. I'm getting better at these things every time I cut them. Yeah, I think that guy was Jesus. Was there, how many steps did he build with no nails? I think it was like 33 steps. In this church he came, like something like that. I heard about this church out west where this guy, Kis Carpenter, came and he built this amazing staircase and no one can figure out how it stands up, you know. And then everybody thought it was Jesus reincarnated, like, or Jesus had visited this little chapel and built these steps somewhere out west. And it's in like a ghost town. There's this amazing carved wooden staircase. Harrison Ford was a carpenter before he was an actor. There's a little cap tip to that in Indiana Jones when he's looking for the Holy Grail. He says, he finds the cup and he looks at it and he says, now this is a cup of a carpenter. And that's a little cap tip because I think Harrison Ford got his first job in a movie as working on the set as a carpenter. They just thought he fit a role, so they offered him a role in the movie, and that's how he got his acting career started. I think he was working as a carpenter on the sets of films, which is actually my first carpentry experience too, but not in film and in plays. You gotta build it, you gotta take it down, you know? We're almost at that pairing line right now, and you don't want to come all the way to it, especially if you didn't put it on with a knife. So it could be a little inaccurate. You probably should pair close to it, but not all the way to it. Yeah, I think that's it. Loretto Chapel. That sounds right. There's a special staircase in that chapel that is a floating, like, spiral staircase with amazing, like, detail. I want to say it has carving detail, like molding on it. That's amazing too for a carpenter to do this all by themselves. Is how I understand that he did it all by himself within a short period of time as well, which is even more amazing. Had exactly the number of steps of years in Jesus's life. So that's another factor that they put in it. Not saying I believe it, just saying, you know, it is kind of cool. So truth is that when these braces are cut, even as much the time as they take, it is pretty frequent that they have to be recut because they're not sized right or there's an angle wrong. So as much time as this takes, it may be possible that I would have to recut any one of these or potentially all of them if I make a mistake. But I'm less scared about that now than I used to be because I kind of have the formula down. That formula I will put on my Discord. It is a mathematical equation. There is some calculus involved, or trig. I say calculus as in like you have to calculate stuff, but it actually is trig. a class I never took. I'm actually pretty good at math, I found out in my adult years. My math grades in school wouldn't tell you that though. There we go. You want a sharp shoulder. You don't want curvature in this joint. It'll mess up the fit. Yeah, math you can use, that's right, man. If the math has no purpose, it's hard for me to care about it. I designed an air purifier where I had to calculate Reynolds number and against static pressure, and it was kind of difficult. It took me months of drawing out these plans, and I realized I'm actually pretty good at the more advanced math when there's an end to it, like I'm trying to get something done. So now we have one side of this cut, which is pretty much where I'm gonna wrap it for tonight. We've cut these two braces so far, though this one here is a little shy of an inch, and it can't be like that. So that one probably will have to be recut. This one I left a little above the pairing line, which is better. That's the brace, guys. And I wish there was videos on this. There are a couple on YouTube, but nobody really explains how to come up with the math. And I'm going to go through all of those things in time, where I tell you how to calculate each angle, you know, what kind of stuff you need to run through your calculator. And, you know, it's just a slow process. I'm going to make mistakes when I put these braces in. Like I said, I'll probably have to recut one or two, maybe all of them. I hope not. Yeah, he was a drifter. That's right. Did the stairs and he was gone. Never seen again. That's exactly right, man. That's the story. Yep. I heard that story as a kid, and, you know, I was like, just thought it was BS, but, you know, it's kind of a cool story, to be honest. The shoulder here is not quite at 45. And I love every last one of y'all and appreciate you very much. Thank you for coming here. Make sure that you check me out on Instagram, Seton Calvin. Go friend me on Facebook. I've only been on there, like I was off for 5 years, so I only have 100 and some friends because I don't spend a lot of time on there. But yeah, friend me on Facebook. I put info on there. Instagram, follow me on Instagram, Seton Calvin. Go to my Discord, subscribe, like, drop a comment, and I will see you all. I don't know if I may be back tomorrow. Just watch, you know, join the Discord so you know when I'm going to be on. And I will see you all later. Take care.